Good morning. As Chapel just said, my name is Seth Johnson, and today I want to tell you my story. I'm a missionary, but I was not always a missionary. I was trained for pastoral ministry, Master of Divinity, Master of Theology, and then I was serving a local church in Roanoke, Virginia. I was spearheading their discipleship ministry and leading a group of young adults and doing a lot of good work, or so I thought. And then one day I was sitting in my den, in my living area, in my home in Virginia, and I don't remember if I was having a quiet time or if I was just relaxing. But all of a sudden, out of the blue, the Lord said to me, "Why don't you care about justice and mercy?" I care about justice and mercy. Why don't you? And it hit me, bam. It was like, I was serving as an elder in the church. I was a Bible teacher. And it's not that what I was doing was bad. It just wasn't everything that God had for me. And that began a period of years in which God changed my life. If you have your Bible, turn with me to Micah chapter 6. Micah chapter 6, and we're going to look at verses 6 through 8. Micah was an Old Testament prophet. He lived about 750 years before Jesus. And he prophesied to Israel and to Judah, and he foretold the destruction of Jerusalem. Jerusalem was very religious, but they had gotten away from justice and mercy. And so in verses 6 through 8, Micah says, "With what shall I come before Yahweh?" What does God really want? "And bow myself before the high God. Shall I come before him with burnt offerings, sacrifices, a yearling calf?" Or maybe he says we've been doing things on too small a scale. "Will Yahweh be pleased with thousands of rams?" They used to pour oil on their sacrifices. So he says, what about 10,000 rivers of oil? "Shall I give my firstborn for my transgression, the fruit of my body for the sin of my soul?" He has shown you, oh man, what is good. And what does Yahweh require of you? But to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Do justly, love mercy, walk humbly with your God. Number one, do justly. Justice is seeing what is wrong in the world and trying to make it right. Justice is defending and taking care of the most vulnerable among us, those who don't have the wherewithal, the finances, the societal position to take care of and to defend themselves. In 2009, my mom and dad, Nancy and Aubrey Johnson, and my sister Abby, went on a mission trip to Nairobi, Kenya. And while they were there, they stayed with a missionary couple named Chris and Lindy Thompson. Chris and Lindy were from North Carolina. And Chris had started a feeding ministry for street boys in the Kawangware slum of Nairobi. Now, Kawangware, been trying to sort this out. Sugar Land has a population of, I think, about 120,000 people. Is that right? In about 49 square miles. About 12 years ago, Kawangware had a population of 130,000, and now it's probably more like 150, 160, 170, but let's say 130,000 in 6 square miles. living in homes that you and I would think of as a bad shed. And Chris had started a feeding ministry, VBS style, food and gospel and play some games with street boys. Now, street boys are the poorest of the poor. Street boys dig through trash for food. They sleep under cars and in kiosks. The younger ones are particularly vulnerable. At night, they'll huddle together in what are called bases. This is a picture of one of the bases in the Kawangware slum. They'll sleep in a base, and the younger ones will sleep with rocks in their hands as a means of defense in case somebody comes along and tries to rape them in the middle of the night. And they frequently get very addicted to low-grade drugs. The glue that holds shoes together. You'll see them carrying around bottles of that or of fuel, and they'll sniff it, and it numbs their hunger pangs, and it numbs them to the hard realities that are their lives. And so Chris was ministering to them, teaching them about Jesus. And my mom was just so impressed. She went and she helped him. She helped him cook for that feeding ministry. And she was just blown away by this ministry that was helping the desperately poor children in Nairobi. And so Chris said to her, you know what? These boys don't really have mamas who will pray for them. And my mom led a prayer ministry. She had a group of women that she prayed with on a regular basis. And he said, would you and your women's prayer group, would you all pray for them like mamas? And she said, yeah. And from 2009 to 2010, my mom and those women prayed. And the boys got a new identity. They no longer called themselves street boys. They called themselves saint boys. Because they had a new identity in Christ. Their primary identity was Jesus, not the streets, not their poverty. And in 2010, my mom was there in the group of ladies and she was praying and she was just crying out to God because she was so broken that these boys that she had been praying for were still on the streets. And so she said to the Lord, she said, Lord, can you not put them in a home? Lord, can you not put them in a home? And that's when she heard the Lord say to her, sure I can. You do it. Do justly. It's not enough to think about it. It's not enough to talk about it. It's not enough to pray for it. It's not enough to ask God to do it. You have to do justly. And so she did. She talked to my dad, she talked to me, she talked to my brother Caleb, my uncle David. There were some others, but it was really mostly just our family. And we said we will send money over on a regular basis to put these boys in a home. So we started sending money to Chris to get them a home and local house parents and education and food. And so I was a donor starting in 2010. Well, in 2012, Chris and Lindy came off the mission field. They came back to North Carolina. And so from 2012 to 2014, we were just sending the money blindly, hoping that it was being put to the right use. Chris was trying to run it from the States, but it's not easy to do. And so in 2014, Mom and Dad asked me to go over with Chris and just do a surprise visit. Show up, don't tell anybody you're coming. And just check on things. Just make sure the boys are being taken care of the way we hope. Well, long story short, so I go over in June of 2014, and it was not all that we had hoped for. The boys, we were sending plenty of money for food. The boys were being fed the same base meal of bulgur night after night after night, which we think they were getting for free anyway from Feed the Children. And we were sending plenty of money for medical. Their medical needs were not being attended. And long story short, the house parents just wanted out. They didn't want to do it anymore. And in the midst of that, I felt like God was calling me to be a dad to the boys. And I remember driving around Nairobi and hearing Jesus say to me, "Come unto me, all you who are weary and heavy laden. Take my yoke upon you and learn of me, for I am meek and humble of heart, and you will find rest for your souls." And as I'm driving around, I just kept hearing Jesus say, "Come to me, Seth. Come, be a dad to these boys who need a dad. Come, follow me." So I decided to give it 40 days of prayer. As God would have it, I was going from Kenya to Israel, and that's where I met our dear brother, Chapel Temple. And he was a very pastoral figure to me at that time. And I was in Israel praying for 40 days. Is this what you want, Lord? Is this you? And at the end of those 40 days, I knew that it was from Jesus. So I came back to the States, started a nonprofit 501c3 public charity called International Alliance for Mercy. We call it I Am Mercy for short, only one M, IAMERCY. Please check it out, iammercy.org. To be the funding arm of this. I sold my stuff, and by October, I'd visited in June, by the end of October, I had moved to Kenya. Within 2 weeks, I had an apartment, and the boys moved in with me. This is me and 6 of the original 7 Saint boys. And we became family. We did life together. We ate at the same table, slept under the same roof. And iMercy's first program was born, the Saint Boys program, which is really just the Johnson family. Number 1, do justice. Number 2, love mercy. Mercy is not simply justice. Justice is important. Justice is foundational, but we can't stop at justice. We must go on to mercy. Mercy is not simply taking up a cause, pleading the cause of the orphan, the widow, the poor, the street child. Mercy is a relationship. Mercy implies closeness to someone else. Mercy is an obligation that you have to another person. It's life on life. Love mercy, Micah says. Enter into those close, family-like relationships with other people where you help them in such a way as they can break your heart. Where you're not just doing something charitable for someone, but you've let them into your life. I became family with the Saint Boys. That was 2014. And over time, the original Saint Boys have grown up. The youngest one is now 21, and they've moved on and out, and they've started their own lives, independent of me and independent of the ministry. But what started to happen is, as God would move one out, God would bring a younger one in. In 2015, just a little over a year after I moved to Nairobi, I began to notice a little 10 or 11-year-old boy who was on the street. And he used to wear these bright pink pants. And I watched as week after week those pants got dirtier and dirtier and dirtier. Then one day I went out and I saw he was washing his hands in the runoff sewage water on the street. And one day I was coming back from the mall, about a quarter of a mile from my house. I'd gone to get something to eat, and I was walking back to my apartment. And I saw the boy, and there was an older street boy. And I said to the older boy, I said, "Can you tell me about this boy?" He said, "Oh, his name is John. And he's a runaway. And we've taken him under our wings. We're trying to take care of him on the streets." So I got back to my apartment. And then my conscience was talking to me. How could I leave that little 10, 11-year-old boy outside, knowing what I know about what can happen to boys on the streets? So I sent one of my older sons, Vincent. I said, go outside and just bring in John, and let's, really just, I figured I'd just at least learn his story. So Vincent goes out, finds John, brings him to the apartment. He was dirty. And I said, John, would you like to take a shower? Yes. So he goes, takes a shower. We scramble around the house trying to find clothes that might fit a 10-year-old, 11-year-old. He was 11 by that time. Then he comes out, and John, would you like to stay for dinner? Yes. After dinner, John, do you want to spend the night? Yes. He slept in the living room. The next morning, I got up and went into the kitchen to make myself a cup of coffee, and John comes into the kitchen and he just gives me this huge hug. And then pretty soon he started to call me Dad. And I was like, whoa, that's getting serious. So I said, Vincent, that was the older son, I said, why don't you go and just see if you can find the mom in the slum. He ran away. Let's try to figure out what's going on in that family. So he goes and tracks down the mom's house. He's with John, tracks down the mom's house. The mom's not there, but he finds a grandmother figure. She's not his biological grandmother, but she's like a grandmother to him. And the grandmother says to Vincent, you can't take this boy back to his mom. She's horribly abusive. She said, he's run away to me multiple times, and I try to take him in, and the mom will come and demand him back. But she said, you can't take him back to the mom. She said, if you take him back to his mother, then his blood be on your head. So Vincent brought him back to me. And so I said, John, are you being abused? And he started showing me marks, places all over his body where his mom had hurt him. As it turns out, John's first memory is of his mom. His dad holding him up as the mom was coming at the dad with a knife, and the dad was holding John up as a human shield. John's mom used to pick him up by his ears, and he would go to bed with his ears hurting. So I said, Vincent, see if you can track down the dad. And Vincent found the dad. And the dad confirmed that the mom was very abusive. In his way, they didn't live together. His way of dealing with it was whenever he would find out John was being abused, he would go and beat up the mom. And he said, John's run away to me multiple times, and I'll take him in, but then the mom will come, and I can't be here all the time, and she'll just find him and take him right back. So it was December of 2015, and so I said, well, ask if we can have him for the holidays. And the dad said yes. And so John celebrated Christmas with us. He got to be with us for the holidays. And over that Christmas season, my heart just grew so attached to John. And I just, it got to where I was like, I couldn't imagine losing him. So in January, came time to take him back. And when they took him back to the place where the dad was, the mom happened to show up. And by an amazing act of God, the mom and dad agreed that the best place for John to be was with I Am Mercy. And John became a part of my family. And that happened over and over and over again, so that while the older ones grew up and moved on, God brought younger ones into my home and family. John is the one now in the red-ish shirt there just beside me and the little boy. And now he's 16 years old. He'll be 17 in December. Love, mercy. Number 3, walk humbly with your God. He's not just God, He's your God. And it's only in the context of that kind of intimate, personal relationship with Him that we're going to be able to live out the Christian life that He calls us to. We have to get up day after day after day and say, okay, Lord, Not what did you want me to do yesterday, but what do you want me to do today? Not long after I moved to Nairobi, I began to sense that this ministry is supposed to grow. I Am Mercy is supposed to be bigger than just this family. So I would go out to my balcony and I would pray and I'd have my quiet time and my cup of coffee. You'll hear a lot of coffee in this, right? And I would say, Lord, how do you want us to grow? Do you want us to stretch towards the Kibera slum and do something there? That's the biggest slum in all of Africa. Or what about Kawangware? That's where so many of my boys come from. Meanwhile, I would walk to that mall a quarter of a mile from my house, get myself something to eat or whatever, and then come back, and boys would beg, help me with food, help me with water. So I'd buy them a pack of peanuts or a banana or something. And then I started to sense that the Lord was saying to me, Seth, why don't you just help those who are begging from you? So one day I was buying a handful of boys peanuts or something, and I said, you know what, if you want food, and I pointed the way down to the cul-de-sac where my apartment was. I said, if you want food, meet me down at that cul-de-sac on Saturday morning at 10 a.m., and we'll do Bible and prayer. It'll be like a little church service, and there will be food there. And that first weekend, it was March of 2015, that first weekend, 12 boys showed up. And we just kept it going. Saturday after Saturday after Saturday, Bible, prayer, food. Walk humbly with your God. For months and even years, we met on the side of the street. Nothing fancy. We would fry up some eggs in the house and put it between pieces of bread and take out a little bit of Kool-Aid. Nothing fancy. Walk humbly with your God and then share Jesus. Then it began to grow. All of a sudden we were 30. And a girl named Yvonne saw what we were doing and said, is this ministry for boys only? She wanted to come, and so we said, you're welcome. And she had that courage to, for a while, be the first girl. And then she started bringing her girlfriends. And after a while, we weren't just for the street boys. We had children from the slum who were desperately poor, but were not on the streets. And we went from 12 to 30 to 70 to 100. And then in early 2020, we were 200 one Saturday. And now we have almost 600 children and youth from the local slum, very poor, who are registered with the Daily Bread program. That's our second program. Almost 600 registered with the Daily program, and eventually I had to say we can't take anymore. We don't have the resources and the capacity, but that's where you come in. We can't take anymore, but we'll start a waiting list. And now we have almost 600 on a waiting list who are waiting for I Am Mercy to call to say you can come and be a part of this program that tells you about Jesus, and there's a hot meal there. We went from 12 in 2015 to now almost 1,200 who want to be involved with the Daily Bread program. Walk humbly with your God. And God himself is the provider of what he calls us to do. I remember early on in 2015, we were evangelizing the boys, myself and Pastor Noah, my Kenyan right-hand man. We were telling them about Jesus, and they were getting saved. They were giving their lives to Christ, making professions of faith in Jesus. And so I told those who had given their life to Jesus, we're going to do a baptism for you. Come on a given Saturday morning, and we're going to have a baptism. We'll take you to a pool somewhere and get you baptized. So they were looking forward to that. Well, I'm laying in bed that Friday night, and I realized, oh my goodness, I forgot to buy shorts for the baptism. And it's not like these kids, have an extra pair of shorts at home. They can just go run and get them out of the drawer. If I don't provide shorts, how are we going to baptize them? So I'm laying in bed. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. Get up the next morning. I don't know what I'm going to do. Crossing the street to go to meet them. Remember, that's when they were meeting on the street near my house. I'm about to cross the street to go and meet them. They're over here, I'm here. And all of a sudden, a car pulls up, parks on the side of the road, and a woman gets out with a big black bag. And I don't think I've ever seen this woman before. And she comes up to me and she says, "This is for you." And I look in that bag, and what should be in there but a bunch of shorts. Walk humbly with your God. Faithful is he who calls you, who also will do it. What does he want us to do now? In 2020, the COVID pandemic hit, and the ministry grew substantially in it. We were helping a bunch of boys who were on the street with food, in a more regular way through our Rehema Street, our Mercy Street program. And the chief of the Muslim area of Kawangware reached out to us. Kawangware is big as far as people are concerned, and there's a specific area in Kawangware, a borough just called Muslim. And the chief of the Muslim area reached out to us, and she said, "I see all that you're doing with the boys." She said, "I need your help with the girls." She was having a crisis on her hand. During COVID, there was an explosion of teenage pregnancies. As these girls were out of school and desperate and hungry and not knowing how they're going to make it, a man comes along and says, "I'll take care of you." So these girls thought they had a man who loved them, got impregnated, and found themselves abandoned. And so they started to turn to desperate measures. And it was in the news. The chief was getting bad publicity. They were turning not just to abortion, but to infanticide. There was one girl who actually threw her baby in a toilet. Another girl laid the baby in a shallow hole. So the chief reached out to us, will I Mercy help? And we prayed about it, and we felt like it was from the Lord. The team is now big. We've got over a dozen full-time staff now, and we felt like it was from the Lord. And so we started meeting with those girls on a regular basis, telling them about Jesus, telling them how much Jesus loves them and their baby, and getting together, forming a support network where they don't have to hang their head in shame, where they know they're loved and that their baby is loved. And we want to see them and their babies grow up to know Jesus. Well, then the girls start giving birth. And we've brought them to the place where they want their babies, and they go to the public hospital or a small clinic, and they don't have the resources that they need to get the attention they need. One girl, we call her name Dora. That's not her real name. Dora was 18. January, she goes to the public hospital to give birth. She's hemorrhaging blood. They give her 4 hours of paperwork to fill out. Then they say, "You need a scan." She's like, I don't have any money for a scan. She pleads with them, "Can I fundraise or something while you give me the scan?" And they say, "Okay." Before the scan's even done, they say, "Your room is ready." So they take her to a room. She gets there. They say, "You're too late." So they take her to another room. In that other room, there's 2 beds, and there's already 3 girls between the 2 beds. And so she says, "I'll just sit on the floor." So the other girls in the room encouraged her, "Just at least put a blanket underneath you." So she does. A hospital worker passes by. "You stupid girl. Do you put blankets on the floor of your own home?" So she puts the blanket back on the bed. This hospital worker didn't care that here's a teenage girl about to give birth on a floor. Cared about the blanket. Then she starts to really sense the baby is coming. There's a doctor passing by. She cries out for help. The doctor says, "I'm not your doctor. Get your own doctor." She didn't know who her doctor was. Finally, the baby's coming out, and medical staff pour into the room. She does get on the bed then. The baby comes, and she doesn't hear it cry. And she says, "What's wrong with my baby?" And they say, "We're just going to take it to the nursery." And they come back a few minutes later and tell her baby is dead. And we heard other stories of horrible neglect. And so I Mercy said, okay, we're going to fundraise for these girls. And we call that program Shiloh's Cradle, so that we can send one of our female workers, one of our ladies, to the hospital with them to be like a mama with them, to make sure they get the attention they need, to make sure there's not a financial barrier between these babies, them and the babies being born healthily into the world. And so now we do. And still raising money for that. A lot more that I could tell you, but I want to ask you to go to iamercy.org, iamercy.org. I'm here until July in the States, and I am praying that God will give us $10,000 donations over this furlough. I want you to pray, though, about what does God want you to do? Maybe it's not that, but how does He want you to get involved with I Am Mercy? Every little bit helps. Not just I Am Mercy, the world, Sugarland. What does God want you to do? What does He require of you? He has shown you. Do justly. Love mercy. And walk humbly with your God. Let's pray. Father, this is from you. Lord Jesus, I Am Mercy is yours, and I am yours, and we are yours. You own the cattle on 1,000 hills. You could do it yourself. And yet you invite us, and not just invite us, you compel us to be a part of what you are doing in the world. You say to us, sure I can. You do it, because that is a part of what it means to be sons and daughters of God. May we be sons and daughters of you. I pray it, Father. I pray it, Lord Jesus. I pray it, Holy Spirit. In Jesus' name, amen. I want to leave you with a blessing. Yahweh bless you and keep you. Yahweh make His face shine on you and be gracious to you. Yahweh lift up His countenance upon you and give you peace.